In my last video, I talked about the possible Yuuzhan Vong invasion shortly after Order 66. And since you enjoyed this topic, I decided to do a similar video for the Imperial era in 10 BBY. Now let's start by analyzing the Imperial Navy and Army during that era. Imperial forces were split into several branches. Most notably the Imperial Army, the Stormtrooper Corps, the Navy and the Starfighter Corps. The Imperial Army was by far the weakest of them. Most Imperial soldiers could barely hit anything, and their individual performance was sometimes similar to the B-1 battle droid. They were mostly used against small rebellions like on Mimban. The Stormtrooper Corps, on the other hand, was an elite unit, and contrary to its depiction in the movies and shows, it wasn't just elite in name. Most Stormtroopers were actually competent and deadly. Obviously, they were still a downgrade compared to the clone army, but you shouldn't forget that the clones were genetically modified, unlike Stormtroopers. They were used for special missions or fought enemies of the Empire the army couldn't handle. Then we have the Imperial Navy. It was one of the largest fleets in galactic history and had access to some of the largest and most terrifying vessels the galaxy had ever seen. The poster boy of the Imperial Navy was the Imperial-class Star Destroyer, sometimes depicted as the backbone of the Navy. However, that wasn't really true. This battleship was the backbone of the Tarkin Doctrine, but since there were only 25,000 of them, most citizens never saw a Star Destroyer. The actual backbone of the Navy was its smaller cousin, the Victory-class Star Destroyer. Nonetheless, both ship types focus on the same aspect: firepower. All Star Destroyers from the Imperial era are designed to be capital ship killers and flying artillery, shelling enemy positions or repelling subjects from orbit. They lacked point defense cannons, but most of the time they didn't need them. Their presence was enough to scare most enemies into submission. If this didn't work, they still had their fighters. The Imperial Starfighter Corps was the complete opposite of the Republic Starfighter Corps, which preceded it. Unlike the Republic, the Empire made use of swarm tactics with cheap and easy to produce interceptors. The Empire essentially copied the CIS Starfighter Corps in all aspects, even though bombers were similar. Like the Hyena bomber, TIE bombers focused on mass bombardment strategies as seen in canon during the Great Purge of Mandalore. Now, all of these branches and their designs aligned with the Tarkin Doctrine. But the design choice was driven by another factor as well: the Yuuzhan Vong. Emperor Palpatine knew about their existence and that the Vong established a foothold in Hel's Fall. He also knew that they will one day attack the galaxy. To prepare for it, without revealing the threat of the Vong, he gave Admiral Wilhelm Tarkin a high position and allowed him to force his doctrine upon the Imperial military. The Tarkin Doctrine was not only good for oppressing people, but the strategies it spawned were perfect for fighting the Vong. Remember when I talked in my last video about the strategical disadvantage the New Republic had due to its Starfighter design? The Empire would have never had this problem. Dovin basils can't deactivate shields if you don't use shields. Attacking the Empire during its height would have been suicidal for the Vong, and they knew it. Army troopers would overwhelm the invaders with sheer numbers. Stormtroopers would lead special operations against Vong world ships and poison them with biological weapons. Swarms of TIE fighters would massacre Corel skippers, while TIE bombers and Star Destroyers annihilate whole planets. Imperial forces would be able to destroy the Vong pretty easily, but Palpatine would use this invasion to his advantage. He would allow them to rampage across most of the galaxy, especially in sectors that oppose the Empire's policies. Sidious would use this invasion to destroy most of the galaxy and rebuild it according to his vision. And it would also increase his power in the Force. The Force is not eternal. Like energy in the real world, the Force only appears to be infinite because of its cycle. But that also means that a larger population results in less power for the individual, at least in theory. In practice, the Force is in balance, and whenever someone is born, someone else dies. But powerful Sith Lords like Darth Nihilus, Darth Vishit and Darth Sidious were able to disrupt the cycle of life and death by absorbing the souls of the dead, resulting in them becoming more powerful than everyone else can even be. A controlled Yuuzhan Vong invasion would allow Palpatine to absorb trillions of beings, exterminate the last great threat to his empire, ensure the loyalty of his subjects, and give him a justification to conquer the entire universe. He would be able to achieve all of his goals in one fell swoop. But what do you think? Do you agree, or do you think I'm overestimating the Empire? Write your opinion in the comments below, and please leave a like and consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video. Until next time guys, and may the Force be with you.